Welcome to episode 27 of Retry. Holy crap, I'm still making these videos. Hey everybody, how you doing? Today we're going to be talking about 1943 for the original Nintendo, released in 1988 by Capcom. Now before I get rolling in 1943, I'd like to mention 1942 real quick. It was Capcom's first big breakout hit and it really put them on the map. Capcom had released Vulgus, which was a shooting game, Sansan, which is a weird side-scrolling action game where you play a monkey boy, and the granddaughter of Sansan makes an appearance as a playable character in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And Pirate Ship Higemaru. If you're not familiar with these titles, that's my whole point. 1942 was their first real breakout hit. 1942's success would be eclipsed with the release of games like Street Fighter and the creation of Mega Man, two of their biggest franchises to date. But that said, it's no surprise why 1942 got a sequel. And what an outstanding sequel 1943 turned out to be. Like its predecessor, 1943 was a top-down shooter where you fly a plane through the Pacific theater of World War II. This has always been kind of a weird bag for me. Capcom is clearly a Japanese company. Their first big hit was a game where you played an American trying to destroy the Japanese fleet. And if you think, hey, well, maybe they just made it with the American audience in mind, sure, the NES version did come out in 1988, but they released it in Japan less than 6 months later, and it was still a successful title. Where 1943 is different from 1942 is that at the beginning of the game, you can actually put points into stats of your plane. It was really kind of a cool idea to customize your plane to your style of play. As you fly through the levels, there are hidden items, some of which increase the timer for your special weapons, some of them increase your plane's energy, but more importantly, some of these hidden items also give you extra stat points. You only have one plane, one life in 1943, but you can take multiple hits, and that's explained at the beginning of the game. All the carriers are sunk, and the only plane they are able to get into the air is yours. So while you pick up energy on the fly, you're actually refueling as you take on the entire Japanese fleet all by yourself. This is pretty much the tried and true gameplay for top-down shooters. You basically just fly through the level, and at the end of each level is a boss which you have to defeat to move on. Here's a few of those bosses in action. Scattered throughout the level are red planes which can be destroyed for power-ups. And definitely one of the cool things about 1943 is, you could change the power-up most of the time just by shooting it. Want a specific weapon to fight the boss? Keep shooting the power-up until you get it. Although it's impossible to see while you're playing the game, picking up two power-ups for the same gun actually levels that gun up and makes it more powerful. The reason why this game stands out so well after so many years is not just the great gameplay. Honestly, it's because it's World War II. The arcades and the home system had a glut of space shooter games. The NES version of 1943 has 24 separate levels, so there's a lot of game here to blast your way through. And if you've listened to me before, one of my biggest gripes is when there's no password and no save game feature, and you have to sit there for hour after grueling hour to beat a game. Well, that's not a problem with 1943 because there's a password feature that saves your progress and your stats. It's really important to point out, 1943 was designed by Yoshiki Okamoto. He had designed two extremely successful games while at Konami, specifically Time Pilot and Gyrus. He later went on with Capcom to design Final Fight and Street Fighter, so he's an amazing designer. I'll tell you, I'm starting to sound a little bit like a broken record here. Just pick up the Capcom Classics collection. This compilation for Capcom was released on the PS2, the Xbox, and the PlayStation Portable. Just by picking up the Capcom Classics collection, you can get 3 of the games which I've already done retries for and recommended. Of course, being 1943, the Battle of Midway, Gunsmoke, and Bionic Commando. I have two criticisms of this game. First of all, when your energy gets too low, it starts playing a sound effect that makes my ears bleed. I'm sorry, but I just don't like it, and it happens a lot later in the game. Secondly, there's no cooperative play, which was one of the best things about the arcade version of 1943. Thanks for watching. For VideoGameSaga.com, this is Tony B, and I'm out. Retry? You know it.